Well, good morning and welcome to episode 333 of Hobby Hotline. I think Chris Carlin and I have done the last 33 together somehow. I don't know how they keep doing this. But
I'm not
more
complaining.
importantly, a welcome to a new host, John Mangini. What's going on, John?
Thanks for including me. Just enjoying a sunny Saturday morning here in South Carolina.
It just proves you have no taste, and we're glad to have you. Chris, how are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I've been hitting some shows recently. Was just at the West Coast Card Show in Ontario last week, and then was out at the Long Beach Expo yesterday. And I did grab a couple cool things I'll show later in the show. But yeah, I just love where we're at in the hobby, where there's no more. I think it's funny how quickly our memories fade about COVID and not being able to do card shows, and now it's almost like there's a renaissance of card shows right now. It's a fun time in the hobby.
Yeah, it is.
How was the West Coast Card Show?
The West Coast Card Show is popping. So for those of you who don't know, they alternate between Anaheim and Ontario. So Ontario is a little more inland in California, and Anaheim is a little more towards the coast. So it almost services two different customer bases, but all the top people that I see at the National are usually out at this show now. So the quality of product that you're seeing there is almost on par with the National in many ways. It's not as big, but it's all the right people. So I'm really, really impressed with what the Rob Veras and the Burbank team has been able to do with that show so quickly. It's very rare that you have a show pick up like this. So for me, it was really great to see so many hobby friends, and every row I'm going down, I'm stopping not only at the quality of the product, but to say hello to old friends. So I think that is. If you can't get to the National, the West Coast Card Show is a really, really, really good alternative to it.
Ruben's looking at your background and wants to know if that's the Reggie Jackson jersey from the Naked Gun movie.
It is. And it's...
Is it really?
No, it's not the one, but it
Right.
is signed and inscribed by Reggie. I must kill the queen. So I got that through David Adams. They did a signing with him, but my boys love the Naked Gun movies, so that was a Christmas gift to ourselves.
That's awesome.
Yes,
Adam,
I do, Adam.
Sports, yep. Saying, John, you got some sorting to do behind you.
Well, I've been sorting, so that's why the mess. But it's been almost never ending. I need to get to it. I have too many cards.
There's never such thing as too many cards. That's just a motto. Gordon says, I fly from Hawaii for the Anaheim show. It's that good. Go Western U.S. shows.
Nice.
Yeah, and I see customers from Japan. I see customers from England. And it's not just sports. Pokemon is going through an incredible resurgence over the last year in particular. And the quality of TCG product there is great. But it's not just that. There's Star Wars. There's Marvel. There's just so many different categories, and every table you go to is a niche of different items. So I agree. I think the quality is really, really solid.
Mangini, you get to a lot of shows?
I mean, I go to the National. I go to we have a show here in Charleston once a quarter, and I'll go when I'm traveling. I go down to Tampa, hang out with some fellow YouTubers, go to shows there. Been to several. I just went to a show up in Northern Virginia. I happened to be there. There happened to be a show, so I went. I enjoy that interaction in person. It's quite different than just online.
I have a question I like to ask everybody. Chris, if you're a little bit different because you actually have to work some of these. But do you find that you want to buy or you have to buy something at a show for it to be worthwhile, or can you just go walk the floor and call it a good show?
Yeah, it's hard to, working at Upper Deck and now PSA, you see so many cool things that you didn't really know were out there. So it's hard because you go down so many different rabbit holes to hold your wallet in some aspects. But no, I think I've got to get something in order for it to be a success. But it's hard when shows are really busy to even walk the floor. At PSA, it's wild. At Upper Deck, things were a little slower for bigger shows where you could get away and peel off, but usually when I'm with PSA, I've got to either shop early or shop late, which isn't a bad thing either, because shopping early you get the wide selection, and shopping late you get the great deals. So I'm okay with that. But no, I think I've got to get something. It's that collector bug in me, or trade something, or even sell something. So.
How about you, John? Can you just hang out at a show, or do you got to come home with something?
I could hang out at a show. Unfortunately, I always come home with stuff, but I could just hang out.
It's wild how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that a lot of us that say we love shows, the truth of it is we get in the building, even if it's a $10 purchase, sometimes you just feel like I accomplished something. I don't know why we have this, but it's a sense of accomplishment that's totally silly.
Well, collecting is not a spectator sport, so
That's right.
you're going to find something.
I love that. Stu, some of our Midwest dealers go to the West Coast shows, and the West Coast show in Long Beach in the past. Well, the Midwest dealers are some serious dealers. Well represented at the national, so that if they're going out there, there's a cost of business for them. So if they're going, that says something. Foul Ball says, I brought him a carload of cards from the West Coast card show, and
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And John Mangini will come over and sort them for you.
Yeah, it'll take me months though.
All right, so we totally went off course already, which is par for my course.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, and not from a medical perspective because we're not doctors here, but Victor Wembanyama, blood clot in the shoulder, out for the season. I want to look at it more from the perspective of, let's assume he's healthy and comes back, and it goes the way. Who do we compare this to? Is this Shohei Ohtani missing a year? Is this Mickey Mantle hurting his knee? Where in sports do we look to find such a star player on the rise with a decently serious medical condition?
Yeah, I don't think you're off on the Shohei comment. Mickey Mantle might be a bit of a stretch, but the show. I mean, Wemby is a freak. He's the type of player we've really haven't seen, and for me, I think this gives him time not only to recuperate, but to get some rest as a young player, and then maybe bulk up a little bit too. I think we could see a very different Victor Wembanyama come back to the NBA in all the right ways. So for us as collectors, to me, I think this presents an opportunity where. There's seasonality for buying. There's seasonality for selling, and something like this. While you don't want to ever root against a player like that, his values have been extremely high, and we all know there's no shortage of his product in the market. So, what I would expect is that you see a dip, and the smart collectors are usually buying on the dip. So that's what I would expect to see.
Mike Petty loves talking Victor Wembanyama, and he would like us to do a 1 hour special on it. So maybe we'll save that for Petty for next time. And how about a welcome here? Hey, Manji. There you go.
Well, Ruben's got an interesting comment about Wemby following the career path of Greg Oden. Oden was a guy who looked like he was going to break down when he was at Ohio State.
Yes.
And I don't think Wembanyama is like that. He reminds me more of a Kevin Durant, who was, in the same rookie class as Greg Oden. So youthful, fluid movements, athletic, smooth. And I don't think that's a fair comparison to Greg Oden. I think he's going to be just fine.
The Wemby injury to me, J.R. Richard had an issue in his second year, but was famous like Canseco was in '87. Yes, if you remember back to J.R. Richard, yeah, he was popular, but nowhere near what Wemby's been. Chris, if you spend enough time in Ohio, that's what the state does to you. That's funny. Shout out to Mangini, Mr.
Double
President.
D.
Yeah, what's going on, Dylan? All right. So tonight, and I wanted to tonight. This is what happens when you don't have enough caffeine in the morning. First of all, shout out to Rex and the good guys at the sports card shop, Michigan and Indiana. Tops is Rip Night at local card shops around the country. Please stop by, get some free packs, some swag, have fun. John Mangini, for the hobby, for growth, is getting people into local card shops and just getting that experience crucial?
I think so. I mean, it's good to talk to dealers and fellow collectors and get some sane advice on collecting. And I think, your dealers, that's a great place to get that information rather than sifting through all the videos on YouTube and you don't know what's good advice, what's not good advice. I've always had wonderful experiences, talking cards at the card shop and learn a lot from dealers and fellow collectors.
Chris, can you go into some of the details of what people can expect at a Rip Night? And if you go to their website, by the way, if you Google it, they'll give a list of stores, but you're talking about athletes, free packs. I mean, what does that do for the hobby from a pop culture, from a mainstream, bringing people in?
Yeah, when I was a 12-year-old kid, my local hobby shop had a monthly raffle. So all month long, you're buying stuff, and I'd have 2 or 3 raffle tickets, and then some other guy would have 58. But no one missed that raffle, and there was a real community aspect to it, and it was fun, and it was exciting, and you grind on people if they win too much, and sometimes people are sharing things with people who didn't win anything, and that's really what makes this hobby great. When we come together as individuals, but share our passion for this nerdy hobby. I think it's awesome. And, for us at PSA, we're all on board with what Topps is doing with these events, because they create new collectors. They create lifelong collectors when you have these moments that will stay with you for a lifetime because you met Michael Rubin or Kevin Durant or Mike Trout, whoever it may be. And when I was at Upper Deck, when we did athlete appearances, they drove huge numbers for sales, not only for Upper Deck's products, but for the dealers. And it's just a great community aspect. There's things that we were tracking on it that happened much later, like the sales for that shop. Yeah, they'd have a big day, but then they'd have this long residual period of high sales too, because people that wouldn't normally go to that shop now know about that shop and they love the experience and they're coming back. So I think it's wonderful. PSA is at 2 of these events today. I just saw a picture from Bleecker Sports Cards in New York, and it is jam-packed. And then we're going to be at Dave and Adams Superstore as well tonight. So I think it's great. I think it's exactly what Topps should be doing. It's no cheap date. It's a lot to coordinate. Not only the prize support, but athletes. Their schedule changes all the time. So being able to hunker them down and get them to go in front of people, after we're not that far out of COVID, athletes didn't want to do these types of appearances for a while. But I think it's really, really overwhelmingly positive for the hobby, and I'm glad it's happening.
Not to put you on the spot, do you know who's appearing at those stores?
I know Michael Rubin's at, I think he's going to be at David Adams. I think they have a couple other athletes, but no, I don't have the full athlete lineup. I've kind of been on the go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know, like you said, some of it changes around.
Yeah.
John, I am one of the people that has been, I guess, waiting to see what Fanatics is going to do. Kind of letting the market play out and take, for all the licenses to finally switch over. Is this is this a genuine attempt that we can say, Fanatics is doing something good? Because without their licenses, the relationships with the athletes, Chris, everything you talked about, coordinating everything with the shops. I mean, I got to give them credit on this one. That I think it's, like Chris said, it's fantastic for the hobby. I mean, can we look at this as a win?
I think so. I mean, if they're going to be a monopoly, they need to do these things, I think.
Chris, Upper Deck had a lot of exclusive with athletes for years. What does it take to get those exclusives from behind the scenes? I mean, how hard do you have to work? How much competition is there? And then how protective are the athletes after the fact?
Yeah, I think the agents like money. That's usually how things start. But I think it's important to know the person you're going after. At Upper Deck, we were able to secure some deals by not only paying, but also looking at what the athlete cares about. And there were a number of deals that we secured because we also tied in a charity aspect. We found out who their charity is and look to partner with them in that way. And I think that's really healthy that that manufacturers aren't just paying, they're looking at other intangibles that they can offer. So whether it be through supporting their social platforms or whatever it may be, it can't just be dollars. Sometimes it is, but I think the more compelling deals are when there's other aspects tied into the deal. But once you have an athlete under contract, there's you want to know who you're getting into bed with a little bit, where there's a number of opportunities for manufacturers to get to know these athletes early on and see if they're the type of person that can sign a lot. Being able to be a good signer is an important thing, and it even goes into the quality of their autograph. And at Upper Deck, we would often work with athletes on their autographs. One in particular I can remember was Alexis Lafreniere, who has been okay in the NHL for the Rangers initially, and then I think he was one. At 16 years old, like signed him, and we actually came up with this awesome autograph for him where he literally spelled out almost his whole name. And then, we worked with them on here's what you give the eBay guys outside the hotel, just an AL, and I think that when you have that collaboration at an early age before the athlete can get into some bad habits, I think it's really a positive thing for sure.
TJ wants to know, Chris, what was it like renewing Michael Jordan at Upper Deck? I don't know how much you can.
It's always a little stressful, I would say, for sure. But at Upper Deck had a really interesting relationship with MJ, and they continue to have, where most people may not know this, but Michael Jordan's brother, Larry Jordan, worked for Upper Deck for a number of years in a sales capacity before moving on to the Charlotte Hornets. And LJ is a fantastic guy. Like he's a little shorter than Michael, but just a genuine, sweet man. Like I think the world of Larry, and I think that when you sign a deal with a company, that's one thing, but when you work together and are collaborative and really it can become like a familial relationship. The ultimate goal. That's what you want to get to, where exclusivity is one thing, but loyalty is another, where you're loyal to the brand you're working with. And Upper Deck's been able to do a really good job of securing big names, even though they don't have a lot of licenses, where they still have Michael Jordan exclusive, they still have Tiger Woods exclusive, and a lot of that is tied to being there for the athletes, not only in the good times, but in the bad times too, and supporting them throughout.
Well, professional transition into something that John and I were talking about earlier. Caleb Wlliams getting a little creative. Now, we've seen a bunch of athletes starting to get creative on some of their autographs, but not a lot of them are going against their chief rival there. John Mangini, first of all, are you an autograph guy in general, vintage or modern? And second of all, what do you think about somebody going after a rival on an autograph? Does it make you want it more or less?
I do have lots of autographs. It's not my main focus. I'm mostly a card guy. It makes me want it less. I don't know. Money can't buy you class.
Oh, there you go. Hot take from Mangini. That's why he's the president. Chris Carlin.
Sign everything.
Right.
I want everything autographed. Double autograph it. 5 times.
I do have a really cool autograph. Well, I have a Dwight Gooden, and he signed it my rookie card, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And I had a Sammy Coates. He was a wide receiver for the Steelers, and he signed it. I can't wait to catch passes from Ben Roethlisberger. And I had to have that one, whether he became something or not. It was just a great signature. So
absolutely,
I think it can be fun when they do that kind of thing.
You can see your smile while you talk about those inscriptions too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but I don't know. I'd keep the negativity out. He'll end up playing for the Packers. Karma's a bitch.
You know what? Without a doubt, I think you're right. That's how the football gods work and the sports gods. Without a doubt, it will come back to that. Or they're going to meet in the divisional champion, the conference championship, and it'll be a national story.
I would say one thing that collectors probably don't even realize about inscriptions is athletes hate them. And oftentimes when you're negotiating with them, you have to pay them obviously more for an inscription, and sometimes it's double the autograph price. So for a manufacturer that's trying to put value into the product, but also have it be something that you still have to have it value out, where, okay, we're paying this guy, we were paying him $50 an autograph, and now we're paying him $100. We can't do these inscriptions everywhere. You don't want to burn the athlete out on them. You want them to still think it's having fun. But for manufacturers, you've got to push the limits on what you're getting from those inscriptions, because just the debut date on an autograph card isn't, or your first goal isn't as compelling as something like that, and it's controversial. It gets people talking. It gets mainstream attention. If this gets picked up during an NFL game, the exposure that gets for our category in the hobby, it's huge. So I don't think you want to be too negative, but I think this is fun in a healthy sporting way. Maybe not so healthy, but I think it's any time that we're getting the mainstream media talking about the hobby, I think it's a good thing. And it's part of what Fanatics is trying to do for 10Xing the hobby. So I love inscriptions myself. The better, the odder, the better. I collect a lot of Game of Thrones cards, and there's some incredible inscriptions for some of those cards that are just fun. Sometimes they're drawing pictures on them, and I think it adds a lot to the uniqueness. Like we love things that get people talking. A lot of my collection is about, I want whoever comes over to my house to be able to see some things, whether it be on my phone from the vault or, seeing something in person that's just cool and unique. And I think cool inscriptions are really awesome. So, but
yeah, I have mixed emotions on the publicity thing that you mentioned. The old adage in the old days of PR people was, I don't care what they say about me as long as they talk about me.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, lately, most of the national news we're getting is negative. And people looking to come into the hobby are seeing thefts and fakes and all kind of craziness. I don't know that that's necessarily good for the hobby.
Well,
I
no,
mean,
it's not. And I think one of the things I love about this show is we try to promote the good things in the hobby. And there's plenty of negative stuff out there, or tons of negative stuff. But I don't think that there's a lot more good people in the hobby than there are bad. I see that every day at PSA where, we're dealing with people who are really engaged with the hobby. Yes, we have to deal with, a counterfeiter here or, someone doing something shady there, but there's a lot more good people in the hobby than bad. So I like when we talk about the positives, even though it's always interesting when there's a robbery or theft or things like that. But I like to keep it classy.
Well, absolutely. As far as we're concerned, I'm just talking about what the national media focuses on. You see video footage of 2 or 3 guys going into a card shop and loading up a big bag and driving their car through the front door, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that hits the national news.
Yeah, sadly. And Rex, speaking to Chris's point and John's point, inscriptions are always an extra cost when we host athlete signings in our shops.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? And John, I'm curious for you. I like athlete inscriptions when they're the baseball. I'm a baseball fan. When they're baseball related, if it's Hall of Fame, 3-time batting champ, stuff that's related to their career, that I find super cool because you think of these guys as humble and they're not, and they're that behind the closed doors, they're talking trash. I love seeing that in the inscription, that they're confident in who they are and that they know the numbers of their career. Does that make it a better inscription for you, or does that not affect it?
For me personally, no. I think for most people it does, but I'm a collector of era pieces, right? I like mostly collecting cards of playing days. To me, when I see those inscriptions, I know for a fact that was written, long after their career was over. And that's the way I've always viewed it. Back when I collected in obscurity, I didn't see how popular those things were among other collectors. I just know how I felt about them. And I never wanted those inscriptions personally.
Somebody who is very happy in life. I just want to give a shout out there.
Well, like I talked about earlier, there's seasonality to things. Of course, for collectors right now, baseball could be perceived a little slower. Not so much with Topps 1 just hitting. And yeah, it doesn't seem like people aren't buying that. And so I would challenge that a little bit. Usually Topps Baseball kicks off the start of baseball collecting season. But until they start playing, then that's when the excitement really comes. So I disagree with you there a bit, BJ Saul, but basketball is slower. I think that with the game's top young star going out, that's going to hurt the product. But we'll see what happens with the playoffs. But I do think basketball has, not so much from a collecting standpoint, the values are all still there. We're still seeing a lot of basketball subs through PSA, but it does seem like the viewership is down, and I wonder what that means long term to the game, but more importantly to the hobby.
Chris, I have a question for you. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about the WNBA being actually more popular than NBA today. Are you seeing a lot more WNBA submissions?
Yes, and I would also say, from a card show standpoint, there's a lot more WNBA in showcases now, and it's not just Caitlin Clark anymore. There's a variety from Angel Reese to Paige to there's a lot more that's going on there, and I think it's awesome. I remember I took a picture a year and a half ago at a card show where there was just one dealer that was doing WNBA in strength, but they said, sell me your WNBA cards. You don't want them, I'll take them. And that's smart. You want to be zigging when other people are zagging. You want to get ahead of the curve on certain things. But I myself want to grab a Caitlin Clark autograph, but there's still they're expensive, and I'm waiting for a little dip, but I haven't seen a little dip. So I sometimes things just start going up and they don't really go down that much. So
that's right.
Sometimes, but yeah.
Well, you were talking about being ahead of the curve. Let me share this story with you because you didn't get to me for the Wemby question. So I wanted the cracked ice, the red cracked ice Wemby.
Yeah.
I saw it and I just fell in love with that card. I thought it was a really beautiful card, so I wanted one. So I was watching it for a couple of weeks. So finally, I made a guy an offer on one, and he accepted right away, which I found a little odd. But a couple hours later, I heard the news that he was out and he had the blood clot. So you talk about a great timing. There you go. I should do videos. I should sell my program on timing.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to say that I fear to compare him to another player. I fear he could be a Rocco Baldelli.
Well, or there's also what happened to Johnny Bench, where he still had a very good career, but I don't want to speculate medically.
Yeah. Absolutely not. But could go either way. I mean, a blood clot's a serious thing.
To back up what both of you just said, Rex says 3 years ago, if you'd bet me, WNBA Prism hobby boxes would be double the price of NBA Prism this year, I would have bet my life savings against it. But here we are. So they're going for double the price.
Yeah, things change in the hobby. I've seen it over the years. Stuff I collect that you couldn't give away. Now selling for thousands of dollars, all of a sudden it's becoming popular.
Speaking
I
of,
think in the future, this is off topic, but things like Type 1 photos, game tickets I've seen get way more popular lately, old vintage game tickets. You never know in the future. At one time, nobody wanted a card that was signed, right? That was considered altered. And now
that's true.
Pay way up for them.
Yeah, especially on vintage autographs. Like I'm always blown away with it. Was when I was growing up, if you had an athlete sign a key rookie card, you were an idiot. You were screwing up the card, and so there's not a lot of them out there on key cards. And now with PSA authenticating cards and autographs, like I am always blown away by what people bring to us. And I often ask people when they're submitting, did you got this yourself? And they're like, yeah. And I go, did you think that this was a good idea? And they're like, no, they told me it was a horrible idea. But anyway, so it's wild, but it also creates a scarcity for those vintage autos.
Yeah. But that's why I tell everybody, collect what you like, because you never know. Things change, trends change. I mean, who would have believed that WNBA would be outselling the NBA today? No, I don't think anybody.
I'm a big Angel Reese fan because she's from Baltimore. So, shout out. Love the shout out to her.
Hey, can I give a shout out? I want to give a shout out because Drew from Clean Cheap Shots is on here. And he's gotten to know former Baltimore Orioles pitcher Eddie Watt.
Sure.
And he's done a series of interviews with him. And we just did a group one. He has him on his channel, but I just did one on my channel with him and Dan from Dan's Vintage PC. And the interview was phenomenal. If anybody wants to check it out. It was done as a live. It's in the live section. But he has some great stories. And it's a really entertaining interview. I just wanted to throw that out there.
And
a shameless plug.
And a pretty good pitcher.
Yeah. He had a 1.69 ERA in 1969.
Well,
Wow.
We won't talk about the ending of that year in Baltimore. I want to talk about autographs a little bit more. Larry David autograph. TJ would want one, but not more than 1,000. Well, Chris, did it go a little higher?
I haven't checked this morning, but yeah, the one of ones out there, and it's going for a lot. But it's a redemption. These are redemptions. If they were live, I think it would be more compelling, especially if you could see the quality of the autograph. Which it's weird. It looks like in the Topps promotional posts about this, it looks like a live autograph on the card. So I'm not sure why they're redemptions. Maybe they thought they would be valuable, but I was bidding on this like an idiot because I love Larry David and Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love comic autographs. I know that there's not a lot of those out there, but you can usually try to find some, like Danny McBride in Allen and Ginter, or sometimes Goodwood Champions has some. But when I was looking for this one, I saw a Larry David Prominent Cuts autograph from Upper Deck. I think it was 2004, numbered of 4. That was going for like $600. It is a cool autograph, and I was like, maybe I'm better off with that one. So I think you've got to. The hobby tends to glom onto certain things, right? And it's a real opportunity to spend more than you need to. If sometimes if you're patient and wait a little while for the buzz to die down on something like this, you can catch a better deal. But obviously, it makes sense that they brought him in because he was part of that campaign where he played George Steinbrenner for the Topps commercial. So anytime you're bringing in someone mainstream or who's popular outside the hobby to the hobby and is a signer you don't normally see, I think that's an awesome thing. So I geek out about it, but I've got to pull back the reins sometimes too and remind myself that there's cheaper options out there sometimes.
TJ Online says 3,000 to 4,000. That's silly. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's silly money.
It's like how hot those Will Ferrell cards got in the Archives baseball.
Yes, you can't touch those for less than $4,000 to $5,000.
Yeah,
that's maybe.
I just got the regular cards. I didn't go chasing the autos.
The one of one is at $10,000 right now.
Wow,
ending on Thursday.
That's
it did sell. It sold on Thursday
for $10,000.
$10,100.03.
What an affluent society we live in.
John, I often say that when people ask me about the NFT craze that was happening for a hot minute, I say NFTs are God's way of telling us we have too much money. Sometimes we just spend on stupid stuff.
I'll sell you a picture of a picture. Don't worry.
I'll give you a little insight into a big auction coming up in Golden Summer Auction. My best friend has Willie Mays' World Series ring, and it's going to be auctioned off in the spring, the summer auction. You should be seeing it all over the place.
Do they have an estimate on that yet?
1.1 mil.
Well, if your friend decides to pull it from the auction, I'll give you my address.
There you go.
This
1.2 is yours.
That's right, Ruben. I like that.
Yeah, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you'll get this. We need a Keith Hernandez and Jerry Seinfeld dual auto. But was there a second spitter?
That would be a cool card right there.
Yeah, that's a great inscription.
That would be a cool card.
Seinfeld inscriptions could be amazing. There's so many entertainment products out there for so many different TV shows, and they don't make a lot of them. So I always think it's cool. I'm excited. There's Cryptozoic is coming out with a set for What We Do in the Shadows. Again, a comedy sitcom, but I'm excited for it. I saw some sketch cards at the West Coast Card Show from an artist that are going to be in there. So I think that those niche sets are a lot of fun, but they can also be quite valuable sometimes because they're not printed at mass. So a Seinfeld set though is something I think the hobby has kind of talked about for a long time. So many different guest stars on that show and so many different incredible inscriptions you can do. The product manager in my head starts getting all excited thinking about that type of stuff.
How about a George Steinbrenner cut auto with George Costanza?
Absolutely. Oh my God, that would be huge card.
That would be cool.
Then you got to get Larry David
and
David Upper Deck was in. I think it was in early 2000. It was called Pride of New York, and there were 2 autographs in there that weren't of Yankee players that sold. It was a John Goodman autograph where he was portraying the Babe, and one was a Michael George Costanza. What's his real name?
TJ.
I'm spacing on his name.
Jason
Anyway,
Alexander.
Jason Alexander was in there too. So those 2 autographs, they're not of players, but they're people needed them for the set, and they were short printed to like 50. But at the same time, people went crazy for those, and I think it's good to have that type of buzz in products.
I think it's good for the hobby anytime there's buzz, even if it's not your niche. And that being said, somebody needs to come out with a tremendous Chrome set for MASH. I just want to throw that out there, that MASH needs an updated set with some autographs in it. Best show ever, but who's counting? I do want to touch on a couple other things. I think baseball is what makes the hobby go round. I think no matter what the attendance or TV numbers are for other sports, baseball drives the hobby. So we have baseball seasons in spring training. The Japan series is coming up. Chris, I can't remember if you're going to that or not.
I am.
You are. And so they named starting pitchers, Yamamoto and Iwagawa in the first one. And I think Sasaki starting for the Dodgers in the second one, if I have that correct. And I think I think this is where the hobby buzz, all the clicks on YouTube, all the Twitter and Instagram follower, this is kind of the rush into the national. I think this is kind of where it takes off. John, do you feel that way? Chris, do you feel that way? I'll let you guys take it.
I love the fact that baseball is becoming so international. Just huge for the hobby, for baseball itself.
Yeah, and seeing the international aspect of it is a different world. My family was invited to go to we were offered tickets to go to the world tour, I think they were calling it, global something. Anyway, the Korean Games in South Korea last year, and we were kind of on the fence. We're like, what, this is a once in a lifetime thing. We got to do this, and we had such a blast. We're going to Japan this year, and not only for me to see, I know that there's passion out there, but for my wife and my kids to see the excitement. And we went to a trading card shop in Korea, and we're sharing cards with people in the stands, and they're going nuts. And it was the Dodgers and Padres, and there were so many people that flew over from Japan for the game to see Ohtani's first game with the Dodgers. And it was wild. And there was another aspect that was really cool. They had printed tickets, and I, of course, graded those tickets. Like, I was like, everybody keep your tickets in good condition. But the tickets, I'm kicking myself that I wasn't buying these outside after the game, but I sold 2 of them, and they sold for over $500, which covered a lot of our costs for going over there, because it was Yamamoto's first game and Ohtani's first game. So, but more than anything, I was just blown away by the passion of the international audience, and I can't wait to see what it's like in Japan. But in Korea, every player had their own song with cheerleaders that the crowd rocked out to every time they came up to bat, and
which is a fantastic idea, by the way.
And it was just a total wild, fun scene. It felt like the Olympics in some ways, where everyone is just all together and just enjoying. It wasn't so much Padres versus Dodgers; it was a celebration of baseball. So I think it's going to be really, really special, and I think it's it's great that leagues are looking at international. Even with what the NHL did with the Four Nations tournament instead of an all-star game, with getting the highest ratings of a hockey NHL game in the last 30 years with Canada and USA this week. So all these things are good for the game. The leagues want it. They can see that there's opportunity to grow the sports internationally, and I'm all for it. Like I think it's really special. Like we've actually made it a family tradition of doing baseball vacations now in other countries to start the season. So it's awesome.
John, I'll get to you real quick. I just want to read this from Baseball Hall of Fame Autographs. Went to Japan series in 2019. It's like going to a college football game, except how clean everything was. Peanuts were sold deshelled. I think it's fantastic. John, you talked about growing the sport international, and how great that is. I think also vintage international players are starting to get collected more. I don't know how much you follow that, but foreign players, vintage foreign players. I mean, the market is blowing up if you do searches, and a lot more. Or do you have any? Do you have
Well,
any
during COVID, I started collecting Japanese cards, and I started to learn about the Japanese league and all the old players. And I see more and more people doing that, even if it's just Sadaharu. You take Hiram Bithorn, the first Puerto Rican player. People are looking for guys like that. So I do see that. I do see that happening. Guys like me, I mean, we're into the history of the game. So, you want to have those players in your collection. And you take Martin Dehigo, the only guy in 5 Baseball Hall of Fames. Many people don't know of him, but more and more people are learning about him, and his prices are going way up in value. Doesn't have many cards. The ones he does have are rare.
I also think things like Minnie Minoso getting into the Hall of Fame, and certain things that bring light on foreign players, well before Shohei Ohtani. I think people forget that there was international baseball before Shohei, and even before Arabo. Chris, you keep leading me into my next topics here. I do want to touch on the Four Nations tournament. Upper Deck has had hockey for a long time. The passion of hockey collectors is unbelievable. The passion of hockey fans is unbelievable. I think the game in Canada where they booed the anthem and you had 3 fights in 9 seconds, and then the TV ratings off the charts. I mean, does this have a rollover into the hobby?
Absolutely. When we look at Sidney Crosby's golden goal, Crosby was beloved in Canada, but he doesn't have to buy a drink there ever again after that, And what's really interesting is McDavid hasn't had that opportunity. Well, he's had opportunities, but he hasn't hoisted the Stanley Cup yet. And for him to have a game winner in overtime in a contest like this, again, it's, for all intents and purposes, it's just an exhibition game. But for everyone who's watching, like, everyone was so invested in this series, it's incredible. And it's absolutely going to affect his values, because in the States we've got so many sports. We're so rich in sports. We even collect the WNBA. It's everything. Like, we want it all now. But in Canada, it's hockey. They'll do basketball, a little baseball, but they live and breathe hockey. I think it would have been really bad for the hobby if the U.S. would have won. Canada would have been really crushed. Like, if you're my hobby Twitter was so fun that week of the games, because Canadians were so excited for it, and then we're just over the moon that they were able to take it home. And I think if you've got Connor McDavid cards you've been sitting on waiting for him to win the Cup, now's a great time to sell him, because he is beloved up there right now. So,
John, you're nodding along here. I assume you're a big fan of what Four Nations did for the hobby.
Absolutely. It didn't have the significance, but it was reminiscent of the 1980 Olympics. That was fantastic. You mentioned that it was the highest ratings. I've been saying for a long time, the problem with hockey for here in America is they never have it on television. They never have it on television. You can watch NBA every night on TNT, but hockey is so hard to find. And it wasn't always that way. And so I think it's lost a lot of its popularity in the States because you don't have the visibility. You don't get to watch it all the time, except for maybe your local team. But, I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and I moved to South Carolina. So I got the NHL package, one year, and I'm like, I'm going to watch the Penguin game. They were blacked out every time because they were on another channel that I didn't get.
Yeah.
And so I had to cancel it. I'm like, I'm paying. I don't even get to watch the games anyway. So having that in the limelight and on television where everybody can watch it is phenomenal.
I'm putting up a bunch of quotes. There is, I mean, the loyalty of hockey fans, even in our chat, is crazy. I can't keep up putting them up here, but
well, no, I mean, it's a game that we just don't get enough visibility on because there's so many other sports and so many other things going on in the States. And for the NHL to put on a tournament like that with the best athletes in the world, because you don't always get that in international hockey, and they're just selling out, like they're going crazy. Like it's what hockey is, and
Yep.
it's a beautiful game. It's a fun game, and it's easy to get excited about that. My wife asked me if we could watch the game, and she that day, and she's never done that in her life before. So again, if you talk about 10xing things in our hobby, I think that's a great place to start, is looking international and having athletes buy into what you're putting, the product you're putting out there, which they clearly did for this tournament.
let me ask a silly question, and if either one of you knows, please speak up. Has anybody announced a card set, and who would have the license? Does that fall under the NHL license?
Yeah, so Upper Deck has a set they put out on ePack. So at upperdeckepack.com, you can purchase cards individually, very similar to like a Topps Now model. I think there's 12 different cards in the set. Unfortunately, you don't see things like autograph or memorabilia cards from an offering like that. But I'm sure, based on the success, that this will be an insert set in a variety of products. Unfortunately, probably not till next year. It takes a long time to get a release like this into a pack product, unfortunately. So I'm sure there'll be inclusion, but some of the buzz may have died down by then. However, we're going into an Olympic year next year as well, so it might actually hit at the right time.
Chris and I have talked about this several times. The World Baseball Classic. Genie, you a fan? Same effect on the hobby? No effect on the hobby?
Ohtani facing Mike Trout, bottom of the ninth. What better cinema, man? It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. Does it bother you at all?
The only thing maybe better is if Ohtani would have come in to relieve in the Game 7 of the World Series against Aaron Judge, which I was hoping would happen. But yeah, that's great cinema, man.
Did you get a chance?
And of course, Topps made the Topps Now card.
Yeah,
and I had to have that immediately.
Did you get a chance?
And Trout brought in the autograph cards of him and Ohtani that we slabbed at PSA, which was so cool. So I love that. I love when athletes become collectors themselves. Not to get off that topic, but I think that's great. But the WBC is what's beautiful about sports. Again, these are all the players we know and love, but it's fun to see them band together in different teams. I think the Dominican Republic team is a lot of fun. Like there's a lot of national pride when it comes to that. And you see teams celebrating, again, it's an exhibition, but they're not acting like it. And that's when it gets really fun for fans, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be, if baseball continues its growth around the world, it would be nice to see more teams that are very competitive. Right now there's only a few.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what the Dream Team did for basketball, we're going to see that in every sport where the world's just going to catch up on talent. Yes, I've put it up there several times. Thank you, Chris. MSG carries for hockey teams: the Devils, the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Sabres. That's a lot of hockey on one network. I'm in Baltimore, and we get just the Caps here.
You have the greatest hockey bar in Baltimore. When I lived there, I used to go to it, and I watched the playoffs with some Cap fans.
Yes, I was about to say, is it a Penguins bar? Is that why I haven't been there?
No. It's a Caps bar. but it's the only hockey bar I know, and it's the Lighthouse right behind Safeway.
Oh yeah.
That place is fantastic.
We could talk all day about bars, but yeah, I was taken there too about 3 years ago. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun bar.
That's awesome. Okay, real quick, just on the home stretch here, protecting collections, ensuring collections. I harp on this all the time. There's been a series of athlete robberies. Just want to bring that general topic into the hobby. Guys, if you have collections that are either sentimental or actual or financially valuable, vault them, insure them, do whatever you got to do to protect them. But just make sure that you're not somebody who they would go after.
Yeah, I've seen it's been heartbreaking to see over the last 2 months in particular. Collectors I know in Los Angeles who literally lost everything, and because of those fires, because of some of these collectors sharing their stories at PSA, we've seen a real influx with the amount of cards that people want to vault with us. Which, I mean, for us, it's a good problem. We think that service is very valuable and underutilized by many in the hobby, but I use it. My wife kind of demands that I do. She doesn't want me to have, super high end stuff here. And so I think it's awesome that there are services like that. It's hard to get over though, as a collector, that you're going to be looking at your cards digitally instead of having them in your hands all the time. But if you've got premium items that you really, and some of the cards I've vaulted aren't super premium, but like you said, they mean a lot to me. And I think it's best to kind of keep things all over the place. Not, you don't want to have 50 different locations, but I have a safety deposit box. I put things in the PSA vault. I've got things around the house. I've got a couple things at my parents' house. So I think it's good to have things in multiple locations, just in case the worst happens.
John Mangini, other than the security of where you're got behind you there, any other precautions you take?
Yeah, I have cards in multiple locations as well. And I use a collector's insurance out of North Carolina.
Yeah.
I find it to be the best because I have over 100,000 cards. And if you go with your homeowners, it's very expensive and you have to catalog every single card, which I'm not doing. And the collector's insurance I use, you can kind of pick your insurance price. And as long as you have photos, some proof that you have cards, that's really all you need. And it's very affordable.
Well, let's bring this full circle. Orioles are on first spring training game on TV today. I could not be more excited. Have you guys been able to watch? Chris, you're a Padres fan. Have they had a game on TV yet? Yes,
and my PC guy is Manny Machado. First pitch he sees yesterday, parks it over the wall in center field. It's hard being in the same division with the Dodgers, but this is such a fun time for every baseball fan because you think you've got a chance and everything's going to be okay. So, but it's a long season, so it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
El Presidente, who's your team and who do you root for?
Well, I root for my Pittsburgh Pirates to be sold. That's who I root for. Because I think that guy's younger than me, so that means they're never going to win again in my lifetime.
Wait, but you have another pitcher coming up behind Paul Skeens that's supposed to have an arm that could be as good as his.
Yes, that's what they say. That'd be hard to believe, though. I mean, you might have an arm as good as his, but that doesn't mean he's going to be as good of a pitcher.
True to that, but good luck, and as they said in Thomas Crown, as long as your interests don't conflict with mine, I wish you the best of luck.
We have another young pitcher on that staff that nobody talks about because of Skeens, Jared Jones. He's a nice young pitcher too.
I mean, he could win a Cy Young. Baseball drives the hobby, people. Believe it.
It does.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I'm going to try to hit the right button and get us out of here. Thank you so much. John Mangini, congratulations. Welcome to the crew. Chris Carlin, always a pleasure, sir. A true veteran in the hobby, and appreciate the insight.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for including me.
And thanks to everybody in the chat. It is the best chat ever.
It is a good chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Saturday mornings, Bench Clear Media and Hobby Hotline. It'll be posted during the week. Take care.